Hello, history enthusiasts, and welcome back to our channel. Before we dive into today's fascinating journey through Viking society, please take a moment to hit that like button. If you enjoy discovering hidden historical truths, subscribe to our channel for more incredible documentaries about the Viking Age, and let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. We love connecting with our global community of history lovers. Today, we're uncovering one of the most surprising and misunderstood aspects of Viking society that will completely change how you view these remarkable Norse people. So settle in, because this story is about to challenge everything you thought you knew about the Viking Age. Imagine sailing through the fjords of 9th century Norway, where towering mountains cast shadows over wooden longships cutting through icy waters. The year is 875 CE, and in a small coastal settlement called Hafrsfjord, a young woman named Astrid walks along the rocky shoreline, her hand resting protectively over her growing belly. What happens to Astrid in the coming months will reveal one of history's most remarkable social systems, one that modern society is only beginning to understand. For centuries, popular culture has painted the Vikings as ruthless warriors living in a harsh, unforgiving world. But archaeological discoveries and ancient Norse texts tell us a completely different story about how these sophisticated societies treated their most vulnerable members. The reality of what happened to unmarried pregnant women in the Viking Age is not just surprising, it's revolutionary. Let's journey back to the great trading centers of medieval Scandinavia, where amber and silver flowed through bustling marketplaces and where social structures were far more complex and compassionate than historians once believed. In the shadows of the Great Hall at Uppsala, in the trading posts of Birka, and in countless settlements across the North Sea, a remarkable social safety net protected women and children in ways that would not be seen again in Europe for hundreds of years. The key to understanding this lies in the concept of frilla, a Norse term that has been gravely misunderstood by modern scholars. Archaeological evidence from sites like Hedeby and York reveals that Viking society operated on principles of practical cooperation and community support that ensured survival in the harsh northern climate. When winter storms could isolate communities for months, every person's contribution mattered, and every child represented the future of the clan. In the great wooden halls where families gathered during the long winter nights, listening to skalds recite epic poems by firelight, the stories they told often featured strong, independent women who shaped the destiny of their people. These weren't merely tales of fantasy. They reflected the lived reality of Norse society, where women could own property, request divorces, and hold positions of significant influence. Consider the archaeological findings at Oseberg, where the famous ship burial revealed two women of high status buried with incredible wealth and honor. Recent analysis suggests these women held power not through marriage, but through their own achievements and contributions to society. This discovery points to a culture that valued individuals based on their capabilities and character, rather than solely on conventional family structures. The runic stones scattered across Scandinavia tell similar stories. Inscriptions speak of women who commissioned these monuments, women who traveled great distances for trade, and women who were remembered for their wisdom and leadership. These weren't exceptions. They were part of a social fabric that recognized and protected the rights of all community members. As winter deepens around our settlement at Hafrsfjord, Astrid finds herself not ostracized or abandoned, but supported by a network of relationships and legal protections that ensured both her welfare and that of her unborn child. The mechanisms of this support system were so effective that they would influence Scandinavian law for centuries to come. But how exactly did this system work? What specific protections existed for women like Astrid? And how did Viking society manage to create such progressive social structures in an age when most of Europe offered no such protections? The answers lie hidden in ancient legal codes, archaeological discoveries, and the remarkable institution of the Thing, the Norse democratic assemblies that governed daily life with surprising fairness and foresight. As spring arrives in Hafrsfjord, the ice begins to break in the harbour, and longships prepare for new voyages across the North Sea. Astrid's child has been born, and what has transpired over these months reveals the true genius of Norse social organization, a system so ahead of its time that it would take the rest of Europe nearly 1,000 years to develop similar protections. The foundation of this system rested on the Thing assemblies, democratic gatherings where free men and, remarkably for the time, women could voice concerns, settle disputes, and establish community standards. Archaeological evidence from sites like Thingvellir in Iceland shows these assemblies met in carefully constructed outdoor courts, where decisions affecting the entire community were made collectively. Unlike the feudal systems developing elsewhere in Europe, Norse society operated on principles of collective responsibility and mutual aid. When an unmarried woman became pregnant in Viking society, she wasn't cast out or condemned. Instead, a sophisticated legal framework swung into action. The Gulating Law, one of the oldest surviving legal codes from Norway, specifically addresses the rights of unmarried mothers and their children. These laws required the biological father to provide support, regardless of marital status, and if the father couldn't be identified or was unable to provide support, the responsibility fell to his family, and ultimately to the community itself. This wasn't charity, it was law. The Norse understanding that children represented the future strength of the community made their protection a matter of collective survival. In the harsh realities of Scandinavian life, where failed harvests or harsh winters could devastate populations, every potential contributor to society was precious. The institution of fostering played a crucial role in this system. Children, whether born within marriage or not, could be fostered by families of higher status, creating networks of obligation and opportunity that strengthened the entire social structure. Archaeological findings from wealthy Viking Age households show evidence of children from various backgrounds being raised together, educated in the same skills, and prepared for productive roles in society. Women in Norse society possessed property rights that wouldn't appear in most of Europe until much later. They could inherit land, own businesses, and accumulate wealth independently. This economic independence meant that unmarried motherhood didn't necessarily mean destitution. The silver arm rings and elaborate jewelry found in women's graves across Scandinavia tell stories of economic agency that supported this independence. The concept of honor in Viking society, while often misunderstood as purely martial, actually encompassed a complex system of social responsibility. A man who failed to support his children, married or unmarried, faced social consequences that could affect his ability to participate in trade, politics, or community life. Honor meant keeping one's obligations to family and community, and this social pressure was remarkably effective in ensuring compliance with support laws. Religious practices also supported this inclusive approach. The Norse pantheon included goddesses like Frigg and Freya, who were associated with motherhood, fertility, and protection of families. Archaeological evidence from religious sites shows offerings made on behalf of pregnant women and children, regardless of the circumstances of conception. The spiritual framework of Norse society recognized the sacred nature of new life and the community's obligation to protect it. Trade networks extending from Greenland to Constantinople meant that Viking communities were cosmopolitan and adaptable. This exposure to different cultures and practices may have contributed to their relatively progressive social attitudes. Merchants and travelers brought back not just goods, but ideas about law, governance, and social organization that influenced Norse society's development. As our story in Hafrsfjord concludes, We see Astrid's child growing up integrated into the community, protected by law, supported by custom, and prepared for a future where their contributions will be valued regardless of the circumstances of their birth. This child might become a craftsperson, a trader, a warrior, or even a leader. Opportunities that were available based on ability and character rather than the marital status of their parents. The Viking Age system of social support for unmarried mothers and their children represents one of history's most remarkable examples of practical humanism. While much of medieval Europe struggled with rigid hierarchies and harsh treatment of vulnerable populations, Norse society developed flexible, effective institutions that protected the welfare of all community members. These innovations weren't lost when the Viking Age ended. Many of these principles became embedded in Scandinavian law and culture, influencing the development of the modern Nordic social democratic systems that continue to prioritize collective welfare and individual rights. The echoes of Viking Age social innovation can still be heard in contemporary Scandinavian approaches to family support, child welfare, and gender equality. As we conclude our journey through this hidden chapter of Viking Age history, we're reminded that the past often holds surprising lessons for the present. The Norse solution to supporting unmarried mothers and their children emerged from practical necessity, community wisdom, and a recognition that society's strength comes from protecting all its members. This story challenges us to look beyond stereotypes and popular misconceptions to discover the complex, often progressive realities of historical societies. The Vikings, far from being merely raiders and warriors, created social institutions that prioritized community welfare in ways that were revolutionary for their time. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Viking Age social history. If this documentary has sparked your curiosity about Norse society, please like this video, subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical discoveries, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Where are you watching from? And what surprised you most about Viking social customs? Until our next historical adventure, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep discovering the incredible stories that connect us across the centuries.